Hey, how's it going? Rich from Elk Endeavors here. Hey, I wanted to talk to you today about a really important question. But before I get to that, I'm going to talk about what's working for you. And this is something that was brought up to me a couple of days ago, and I was thinking about it, and I have been thinking about it, but I've never really thought about it in such a direct, I guess, the direct way. And the question is why, if it's not working for you, right? If things aren't working for you, why do you continue to do them, right? And that's something that I've thought about in the past, but not really, you know, without really much possibility of changing things. So, it's sort of like this acceptance of like, well, it's not working for me, and it's not gonna work for me. And that's how I used to think. I don't really know if I realized that, but ultimately that's how I used to think. It's sort of like, well, this is just the way it is for me, and this is what. Not that I've accepted. I mean, I have a really great life, and I'm really proud of my life. But there's things that I would like to have and to do better at, and I just sort of accepted that it wasn't gonna happen. And I remember one time when I was first dating my wife, we were at a relative's house, and they have a home on Seneca Lake up in New York State, and I just loved this house, and I love New York State. The Finger Lakes region. I went to Boy Scout camp there for 2 weeks every year. 2 weeks in the summer was awesome. Anyway, we were sitting there on the dock, and we were all by ourselves, and I looked at her, and I looked at my wife, and I said, there's got to be something more. We have to think bigger, and I'll never forget that moment. And we didn't. The funny thing is, we didn't think bigger, right? Like that. I don't really know if we knew how to think bigger. But it was more something like, we've got to just think bigger. And now that I know how to think bigger, I've made it my mission to try to help other people think bigger as well. And so when I asked that question of like, if what's working, if what you're doing right now isn't working, what are you going to do about it? What's the alternative? And I'm here to tell you that there's more alternatives than you think, right? I mean, a lot of, just like I said, I didn't think there was any alternatives, but there's more alternatives than you think. If you let your mind sort of go and wander and really think about and believe that there's other things out there. And there's so many people, like I'm listening to all these things in my car, podcasts and YouTube videos. I just stick them, I listen to them. It drains my battery really, really fast, but I listen to them, and they're just, it's fascinating the things that that these speakers come up with, because it's all possible. It's all there. It's just a matter of figuring out how to get there. So one of the things that I've been struggling with, and it kind of came to a head today, was because my mortgage broker is a good friend of mine. He called and told me that the rates had gone down, and that maybe I should think about refinancing. And that's something that, I've done it several times, and it's not something I plan to do again, just simply because, every time you do it, you start over at 30 years. But I plan to stay in this house. And then I wrote this, my whole blog post is sort of, I have to clean it up a little bit, because I kind of went on rambling. But, I was planning on staying in this house, but I'm also wondering if I want to move. Like, that's one of my goals, but I'm sort of confused about my goals now. But at any rate, he called and told me that that the rates had gone down, and in the past that hasn't worked for me, right? Like it's sort of a temporary relief where you get you don't have to pay the mortgage for a month, and you get like $100 off your mortgage each month. But what's that going to do for me in the long run, when I'm paying a lot of money on the front end, and I'm still having to pay for 30 years when I'm down to I might be down to 28 years right now. So my point there with that is that that's not, it's a decision I have to make, because I don't know what the numbers are, and I haven't even talked to my wife yet, but I have to make that decision based on what I know now, and how how I feel about money and how I understand money versus how I used to make the decision, which is like, if it's going to make it cheaper, I'm going for it. That was the main goal, and that's never worked for me. And so now I'm kind of thinking about what my goals are, and envisioning the home that I want to live in. So I don't even know if I want to stay in this house, and I think it would take some convincing from my my wife and my family, but like I think I do know that I want to move, and I want to buy a plot of land, and I want to build a house on it. And if I envision it, that's what's going to happen. Like, if I sear that into my brain, that will happen for me, and my family. And it's just a matter of, it's a matter of setting that goal and having it out there, and then just letting things work, right? You have to work towards it, but like, your mind will figure out how to get there. And right now I'm listening to a lot of Bob Proctor stuff, and he's talking about, if you make a decision and if I say I want to buy this plot of land, in 3 weeks, and it costs, $500,000, like, he figures out a plan to do it. And I that part's not on that part's not on YouTube. I think you have to pay a little extra to get that part, get that actual plan. But it's fascinating to think, he's got all these success stories. So one of the things that I was thinking about on my way here to the park was, you think about, if it's not working, why are you still doing it, right? And then I thought about, if sugar, if it's not working, why are you still doing it? And then I thought about how how no one ever said, I got it. How no one ever tells you to hold on to the past. What do they tell you? They tell you to let go of the past. Let go of the past. The past is behind you. Move into the future. That no one ever tells you to, you better hold on to the past, because that's the way you're gonna succeed. No one ever told you that, right? It's like saying that, it's like saying to Derek Jeter, when the Yankees won the World Series, like no one ever went up to Derek Jeter and said, it's not really whether you win the game. It's really how you played. Like, no one tells us the champion that. They tell the loser that. They tell the person who lost the game that, not the loser, but the person the person who lost the game. And that all those cliches are important, but you have to think about that. Like, what? No one ever said to me or you, I almost guarantee you, no one ever said to you, you better hold on to the past because that's what's going to make you successful. No one ever said that. So I really think that's an important thing. And I want to leave you with this, and this is something that I came up with on my own, and someone might have said this to me, but as I was writing today, the best part about writing for me is that I come up with ideas as I write. So in a similar way of like where I lose my train of thought, like I just did now, when I'm writing, I gain thoughts and I gain ideas, and it's really it's a wonderful way for me to express myself and understand myself. But one of the things that I was thinking about today is, what do we usually say when we're trying to take a risk? Like, if we're about to take a risk, what will someone say? They'll say, what's the worst that can happen, right? Especially if they're trying to convince you of something, right? Like, if they're trying to convince you to do something that you're reluctant to do or you don't want to do, they'll say, what's the worst that can happen? And usually it's it's like you might go into debt for a little while, or no one's gonna die, that sort of thing. But I don't want to ask that question anymore. That's not my question, right? That's not a good question to ask. The best question, the question to ask is, what's the best thing that can happen, right? Because if you put that in a positive light, you put it into a positive light and say, what's the best thing that can happen if I do this? That's an incredible question right there. And that's something that really, changes things. And I love, there's a comment by George Bernard Shaw, who's a playwright, and he said something to the effect, I always have to look it up because he words it differently, but he said people are always complaining about their circumstances. I don't believe in circumstances. The people who get on in this world are those who go out and look for circumstances, and if they don't like what they find, they make their circumstances. And that's really where I'm coming from. I'm making my circumstances. I've decided, I've made a decision, and I'm taking control of everything. I'm not worrying about what other people think. I'm not even what other people think. I'm not worrying about about, what the other elements or the factors that can hit me. I'm not worried about those. I'm worried about driving forward and making my goals. And that's really important. So when I think back to what's the best thing that can happen to me, the best thing that can happen to me is that my kids and my wife and I are really, really happy in a brand new home on a brand new plot of land, and we're excited to be there, right? I'm excited to get home and hang out with my kids, which I always am, but in a different house, in a different environment. It would be incredible, right? So that's the best thing that can happen. I don't even want it. There's no reason to think about the worst thing that can happen, because the best thing that can happen is the most important thing. So I'll leave you with that. Hopefully, you got some good information out of that. I feel strongly about this, and I'm really excited to impart this to you, because I think it's a really important concept to think about what's the best thing that can happen to me. And so I'll leave you with that. All this again is through all these things that I've learned have been inspired by the 4% Success Challenge. So if that's one of the things that you're thinking about, and you have to think about what's the best thing that can happen to you, think of me as an example. You can become a different person, a more confident person, a more structured person, a better husband and father, brother, son, etc. That's the best thing that can happen. And that's really what it's all about. So if you're interested, definitely check out the 4% Success Challenge. It's absolutely changed my life. And check out my blog posts on Medium. I write blog posts about the same sort of topics that I discuss in my YouTube videos. So they're kind of simultaneous, but take a look at it. And I hope you have a great day, and I look forward to talking to you again tomorrow. Thanks a lot. Thanks for watching.